When we talk about America, most people picture tall skyscrapers, bustling cities, and a life full of opportunity. But behind that shining image lies another story, one that rarely gets the same attention. In many cities, the homelessness crisis has reached devastating levels, with tens of thousands of people forced to live in tents, under bridges, or on sidewalks. At the same time, prostitution and survival sex work remain part of this dark reality, often overlapping with homelessness, poverty, and addiction. These two issues, homelessness and prostitution, are deeply connected. Both expose the broken systems of housing, healthcare, and social support that leave millions of Americans vulnerable. They are not isolated problems, but two sides of the same coin: poverty, desperation, and survival in a society that often looks the other way. Homelessness in America today has become one of the biggest humanitarian crises of the modern era. If you walk through downtown Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Portland, Seattle, or even smaller cities across the country, you will see entire blocks filled with tents. These aren't just temporary encampments. They are neighborhoods of the forgotten, where people build makeshift shelters out of tarps and cardboard just to survive another night. The reasons people become homeless are complex: rising rent costs, loss of jobs, untreated mental illness, lack of affordable housing, drug addiction, family breakdown, and the failure of social programs to provide safety nets. Every story is different, but the outcome is the same: human beings forced onto the streets in one of the wealthiest nations in the world. The harshest part of homelessness is not just the lack of a roof, but the daily struggle to survive. People living in tents often have no access to clean water, no reliable food, and no safety. They live constantly exposed to weather, burning heat in the summer, freezing cold in the winter. Many get sick, but have no health care. For women especially, the threat of sexual violence is constant. Families who lose their homes often end up separated, with children going into foster care or shelters. Veterans who once served their country are left to beg for change on the same streets they once marched proudly. This is the heartbreaking reality: people reduced to invisible lives, with no path back into society. And here is where prostitution enters the picture. For many who are homeless, especially women and LGBTQ youth, sex work becomes a last resort for survival. It is not about luxury or choice. It is about trading the only thing they have left, their bodies, for food, shelter, or money to get through another day. Survival sex work is common among people living in tents or shelters. Some exchange sex for a place to sleep at night, others for drugs to escape the pain of their reality. In cities across America, prostitution is not hidden. It thrives in the shadows of poverty. But unlike the Hollywood version of glamorous escorts, the truth is grim. Many are exploited, controlled by pimps or traffickers, trapped in cycles of abuse and addiction. This is the cycle. Poverty leads to homelessness. Homelessness makes people desperate. Desperation pushes some into prostitution, and prostitution often deepens the cycle of abuse, addiction, and stigma. Instead of receiving help, these people are criminalized. Police raids on homeless encampments push them further into hiding, while laws against prostitution punish those already struggling. Society often labels them as criminals, ignoring the truth. They are victims of an unequal system where survival comes at any cost. But how did America reach this point? Decades of rising housing costs, wage stagnation, and shrinking social programs have pushed millions into poverty. The lack of affordable housing is perhaps the single biggest driver of homelessness. In cities like San Francisco, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment can be over $3,000 a month, far out of reach for minimum wage workers. When people cannot afford rent, eviction becomes inevitable. Once evicted, it is incredibly difficult to get back on track. Landlords often refuse to rent to someone with a past eviction or poor credit, trapping people in homelessness for years. Drug addiction and mental illness also play a major role. Without affordable health care or treatment, many fall through the cracks. Some self-medicate with drugs to numb the pain of life on the streets, which only deepens their struggles. Others lose jobs and stability because of untreated depression, PTSD, or schizophrenia. Instead of receiving care, they are left to wander cities in a constant state of survival. Prostitution, meanwhile, has always been tied to poverty. In America, it is often criminalized rather than treated as a social issue. Many who engage in sex work are not doing so out of free choice, but because of homelessness, abusive relationships, or trafficking. Street-based prostitution is especially dangerous, with risks of violence, disease, and arrest. And yet, it persists because survival demands it. Imagine being a young woman with no money, no family, and no shelter. Your choices become limited. For many, the decision is not whether they want to sell sex, but whether they want to eat that day or have a place to sleep. One of the most overlooked aspects is how youth are impacted. Studies show that LGBTQ teens are at especially high risk. Many are kicked out of their homes after coming out, and with no support, they end up homeless. To survive, some turn to prostitution. These young people often face higher risks of exploitation, violence, and trafficking, yet their voices are rarely heard. The connection between homelessness and prostitution also shows how broken the justice system can be. Instead of focusing on rehabilitation, many cities criminalize poverty. Homeless encampments are cleared by police, tents are torn down, and belongings are thrown away. Sex workers are arrested, fined, or jailed, which only makes it harder for them to escape poverty. Once you have an arrest record, finding a job or stable housing becomes almost impossible. So the cycle continues. The human toll of all this is staggering. In America today, over 500,000 people are homeless on any given night. Tens of thousands live in unsheltered conditions, tents, cars, or sidewalks. Women make up a growing percentage, and many report experiences of sexual exploitation. Prostitution, meanwhile, remains one of the most stigmatized and dangerous forms of work, with little protection or support. Together, these two crises paint a dark picture of inequality in a country that prides itself on freedom and opportunity. But the hardest truth is that many Americans have become numb to this suffering. Walking past tents on sidewalks has become normal. Driving by women on street corners barely raises eyebrows. Society has learned to look away, to see homelessness and prostitution as separate worlds that do not concern them. Yet the reality is, these issues affect everyone. Rising homelessness impacts neighborhoods, safety, and public health. The exploitation of vulnerable people through prostitution reveals the moral failures of a society that allows desperation to dictate survival. Still, there are solutions, though they require compassion and political will. Housing First programs, which provide stable housing without conditions, have shown real success. Affordable housing initiatives, rent control, and stronger tenant protections could prevent many from becoming homeless in the first place. Access to health care, especially mental health and addiction treatment, is critical. And when it comes to prostitution, the answer lies in harm reduction, decriminalization, and support services that treat sex workers as human beings, not criminals. Instead of punishing those struggling to survive, society must ask, why are so many forced into these situations in the first place? The homelessness crisis and prostitution problem in America are not unsolvable, but they demand honesty, empathy, and action. They require acknowledging that behind every tent is a human story. Behind every sex worker is a history of pain, survival, and resilience. These are not faceless problems. They are people, mothers, fathers, children, veterans, neighbors, who have been left behind. If America is truly the land of opportunity, then opportunity must extend to everyone, not just those who can afford it. Homelessness and prostitution are symptoms of deeper social and economic failures. Solving them means more than charity. It means structural change. It means affordable housing, fair wages, accessible health care, and a justice system rooted in compassion, not punishment.